The Law and You, a look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You, presented by lawyer Panel R. Campbell, QC, and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, greetings. Welcome to another presentation in this public service nation-building series, The Law and You. This is program number 890, coming to you on Monday the 29th of January 2018. On this program, I will speak to you on the topic Aliens Land Holding Licenses. But before getting into the topic, very brief preliminary comments. Firstly, my deepest condolences go out to all families which have suffered recent bereavements. And I think immediately of the family of the young man who was shot and killed at Redemption Shop on his birthday. And then we hear of the discovery of a body at Sign Hill and the disbelief of the Carrington family at hearing the news. May the good Lord grant strength to all who mourn. And then I wish to congratulate Senator Kay Bacchus-Batiste on her appointment as an opposition senator. She was sworn into Parliament this morning, and I, for one, as somebody who has known her for a long time, in fact, I taught her in the sixth form, upper sixth of the grammar school, way back in 1968. So congratulations to you, my sister, a member of the legal profession, and I wish you all the very best in your senatorial career in the House of Assembly. And speaking of the House of Assembly, I wish all parliamentarians all the best in the budget debate, which is supposed to commence next week, Monday the 5th of February, and to the new Minister of Finance who will be presenting his maiden budget speech, the Honorable Camilo Gonsalves. I do wish you all the best. I remember when the Honorable Gonsalves was sworn into Parliament and he had delivered his maiden parliamentary speech. I said on this program that he had delivered the best maiden speech I had heard delivered in the Parliament of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And therefore, I do believe that he will acquit himself very well given his first budget speech. Now, that's it for preliminaries. As I told you, I plan to keep preliminaries reasonably short. So let me get into the topic right now. Aliens Land Holding Licenses. In the laws of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and in particular in the Aliens Land Holding Regulations Act, that is the real name of the act, which is Chapter 316 of the 2009 edition of the Revised Laws of St. Vincent and Grenadines. In that act, an alien is defined as a person who does not belong to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Now, the aliens landholding regime applies to individuals as well as to companies, but on this program, I will not be dealing with the provisions having to do with companies. I will be confiding myself to the provisions dealing with individual persons. So according to that definition, In the eyes of Vincentian aliens landholding law, a St. Lucian, a Grenadian, a Barbadian, a Dominican, a Jamaican, a Guyanese, a Tobago, Trinidadian, all these persons are regarded as aliens unless they become Vincentians by virtue of registration or marriage. And therefore, if a Vincentian person is engaged to a non-Vincentian and they both wish to acquire property in St. Vincent and the Grenadines jointly, the non-Vincentian partner will have to apply and receive an alien's landholding license before he or she can even be part owner of property here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. These aliens landholding license laws were passed in colonial times, when the colonial power, Britain, was very anxious to exercise total control on the persons who are allowed to own property in the British colonies. So in the old colonial days, the governor's license was necessary for a non-colonial and non-belonger to own property. Since independence, all the Caribbean territories, except I think for Barbados, have kept these old colonial structures. So if you go to another British Commonwealth Caribbean country, well, they don't say British anymore, Commonwealth Caribbean country, you cannot automatically buy land or property in that country unless you get a license from the government. Therefore, a non-Vincentian, an alien, who wishes to purchase property here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, even if it is a square foot of land, has to go through an application process, and I will tell you a little bit about that, and receive the approval of the government before he or she can acquire that property or that little piece of land. First of all, the alien, and I would intersperse the word alien with non-Vincentian, because alien has a very unfriendly ring to it, but that's the word the law uses. The first step to be taken by a non-Vincentian wishing to purchase property here is that he or she has to apply to the cabinet for permission to hold that piece of land. There is an application fee which has to be paid upfront, which is non-refundable. And then among the documents which the non-Vincentian has to submit to cabinet would be details of his or her passport. There would have to be a letter from a bank verifying the financial credentials of the person. There would have to be a police certificate of character from the place where the person lives or has last lived, certifying that the person hasn't got a criminal record. There are cases in which, quite apart from the letter from the bank, bank statements might be required. and there are particulars to be filled out on a form. So those documents are sent to the Cabinet Office along with the application fee, along with a plan, survey plan of the land or property intending to be purchased, and the details of the price of the property, and other details of the title to the property. When the documents are processed by the Cabinet Office, the applicant may be written to ask for further documentation. The application has to go to several government offices for vetting, among them being the Chief Surveyor's Department, so that they could certify the particulars of the plan and the deed of the person selling the property and so forth. And they could also certify that the purchase price at which the property is being sold reflects the true market value of the property. When the application papers have been processed, the matter goes to the Attorney General's office for final vetting, and from the Attorney General's office, the application papers go to the Cabinet with a recommendation. Assuming that all is in order with the application, Cabinet deliberates on the application and either grants it or refuses to grant permission. As far as I am aware, there is no appeal against a refusal by Cabinet to grant an application seeking an alien's landholding license. And the Cabinet hasn't got to give reasons for not approving an application. These are matters regarded as the prerogatives of the government, and if for whatever reason the government decides not to allow X applicant to purchase land in St. Vincent and Grenadines, that is it. But if, on the other hand, the application is approved, certain conditions are placed by Cabinet on that approval. Usually, if it is bare land, Cabinet would say, look, you have permission to buy the land, but you have to put a building on the land, and Cabinet may specify costing no less than X amount of dollars within such and such a time frame. And Cabinet may say, if within that time frame you do not put a building on the land, then the license is automatically rendered void. And the Cabinet Office will direct the payment of the fees. The fees for an alien's license are set by the government, and they are published as a schedule to the Aliens Landholding Regulation Act. Now, the fees are quite hefty because there's the alien's license fee itself. Used to be 10% of the value of the land, has varied somewhat, but still very hefty, in addition to the normal stamp duty, which is payable by persons acquiring land in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, so that it is an expensive process for an alien, a non-Vincentian, to purchase property here, just as it is for a Vincentian who goes to another Caribbean territory which has laws of that kind. Vincentian has to face much the same problem. I don't believe Barbados ever had aliens landholding license, and certainly in the days when we were students in Barbados, Barbados did not have aliens license. So non-Barbadian could go there and buy property as they wished. I don't know if recently there has been any government regulation of the sale of land to foreigners in Barbados. But I know cases where Vincentian goes to live in Jamaica and meets the same situation that a Jamaican would meet in St. Vincent and the Grenadines if he or she wants to buy property here. Excuse me. One of the standard clauses in an alien's landholding license is that failure to comply with any of the conditions laid down by Cabinet for the alien to acquire the land not only renders the license void, but renders the land liable to be forfeited to the government. So if an alien gets a license, having applied, and the license says you have to put up a building within 3 years, and the 3 years pass and no building is put up, the government can go to court seeking an order of forfeiture. And if the government can satisfy the court that the alien was granted a license subject to certain conditions and the conditions were breached, or one of them was breached, the court would grant the government an order of forfeiture whereby the alien would lose the land to the government. And that has happened here. But by an interpretation placed by the Privy Council, in a Vincentian case, Ho Young and Bess, the courts determined that until the government moves for forfeiture through the legal system, an alien who is in breach of the conditions of a license can continue to hold the land. So forfeiture has been declared by the court as not automatic. You don't automatically lose the land to the government if you are in breach of the license as an alien. The government has to make a move through the court system, which means that an alien who is in breach of the license can sell the property quickly to a Vincentian and avoid the consequences of breach. That is, but the alien will have to do that before the government goes to court seeking forfeiture. As you might imagine, an alien might form the bright idea that because of one reason or another, he or she is not likely to get a license from the government. Suppose the alien has a criminal record, might be something trivial, but still has a criminal record in his or her country of origin, and knows that if he or she applies, he or she would not be able to furnish a certificate of character, and therefore may never get a license. That alien might get the bright idea, well, here is a Vincentian with whom I am close. Why don't I buy the property in the name of the Vincentian, so that the Vincentian owns the property in the name, because the Vincentian hasn't got to bother about applying for an alien's license. So he, the alien, and the local Vincentian, his good partner, his spa, might decide, okay, I'll buy the property in the name of the spa. I would live there, and the spa's name would be on the deed just as a sham. Well, if the government discovers that the alien actually owns the house and tried to circumvent the alien's landholding regime, steps can be taken against the alien, but the evidence may be difficult to come by, because the alien is now going to admit, yes, I furnished the money and gave it to my spa, and he went to a lawyer's office and pretended that he was buying the property for himself. And the spa, the Vincentian person, is certainly not going to admit, yes, I had no money, but I bought it, and it was bought in my name on behalf of my friend in the non-Vincentian, because he couldn't apply for one reason or another. So that the government may have difficulty in proving that there was a trick, an attempted circumvention of the alien's license. On the other hand, the Vincentian in that situation, once the deed is registered in his name, may turn around to the alien and say, that property is mine, you know. The alien would say, well, what do you mean is mine? We had an agreement that it will just go in your name for convenience and so on. The Vincentian will say, what convenience? The property is mine, the deed is mine, in the courthouse it is my property, go about your business. Now, of course, if that sort of thing occurs, all sorts of consequences could follow. Vincentian may find himself as being the target of a hitman. I'm not encouraging violence, but certainly that situation would be provocative of a violent reaction by the alien. So I just say that as a humorous aside, to show that wherever there are laws imposing restrictions, people would always try to get around them by using one stratagem or the other. But what I want to impress on you, without going into too many technical details, is that a non-Vincentian cannot easily purchase property here in St. Vincent and Grenadines, just as you, the Vincentian, cannot easily purchase property in most other countries which have laws similar to our laws. But there are hundreds of non-Vincentians who have successfully applied to the government, got their license, and are happily living in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in properties which they purchase through the regular channels, paying their proper fees, not trying to cheat the government, and doing everything above board and according to law. As I said at the beginning, there are special provisions which apply to companies, but that would be to introduce complications into the narrative. All right? So that is all from this program of the Law and You, program number 890. I look forward to being of further service to you next week, Monday, DV, for another presentation in this public service nation building series, The Law and You. Do have a pleasant week, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls. And may the good Lord continue to bless us all, and may He bless all our parliamentarians as they apply themselves to their responsibilities in dealing with the annual budget. May the good Lord bless us all.
The Law and You, a look at laws in St. Vincent and the Grenadines which affect our daily lives. The Law and You, presented by lawyer panel R. Campbell, QC, and brought to you on SVG-TV as a public service.